guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I explained in my last video and also in my newsletter that I was going to be slowing it down a little bit on YouTube, but I'm back today. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about unconventional ways to build generational wealth. I think generally we all know generational wealth as the passing down of financial assets or money or property portfolios from one generation to another. But as I've grown in my understanding of what it means to truly have wealth and to also pass down generational wealth, my mindset on wealth has definitely expanded, and I see wealth now as so much more than just money. For me, it's health, it's location freedom, it's habits, it's knowledge. And so we're going to be getting into all of that in today's video. And for those of you who've asked in the past for access to previous webinars that I have done and the resources from the resource bank, my personal website is finally completed, so you can go and purchase them on the website. A special discount code for you guys since I have been away from YouTube for a very long time. So use the discount code YouTube20 for 20% off. But let's get into the video. And the first thing that I want to talk about is location freedom. For me, wealth and money gives you access to choices, and what I want in life is to have as many choices as possible, to be able to choose, to have the freedom to do whatever it is that I want to do. And location freedom is becoming one of the most sought after versions of freedom, alongside financial freedom and time freedom. Location freedom in particular refers to your ability to move and work and travel around the globe as you please and with as much ease as possible. And the reason why this is important is because there are many people who actually do have financial freedom or financial wealth or resources, but don't have that time and location freedom. They don't have the ability to move across the globe and actually experience some of the things that they want to experience with the wealth that they have accumulated. Even, for example, people who talk about, I literally was watching a video this morning of this guy who was saying that he's been to 157 countries, and I think there's maybe like 178 countries in the world. That might sound normal for those of us, especially if you are British, if you're American, if you're Canadian, and our passport grants us access to so many different countries without visas. But there are many people, you guys, and I've learned this as I've traveled more and I've spoken to so many different types of people. I've realized how much of a privilege it is to be able to even say things like that. There are a lot of people who do not have that freedom of access. I really want to get into that today and talk a little bit more about how you can increase your location freedom. For me, this is something that I've been focusing on over the last 2 years, and I want to increasingly focus on. I like to call it like my journey to becoming a global citizen. So let me get into having multiple citizenships or even just multiple residencies. I was talking about this on TikTok, but I actually have triple citizenship, and I'm now earning in 3 different currencies, and that's actually quite a big deal to me. I know some people are going to be like, okay, but what's the point of having multiple citizenship? What's the point of earning in different currencies? So we'll start with the citizenship and the residency side of things. There are so many benefits to this, and I'm actually going to put 2 channels on the screen that I really like to watch when it comes to this ability to move around the globe and the benefits, especially as an investor. This topic starts to move into the arena of people who already have a certain level of wealth. Like, not everyone can have these conversations, and I know that. Some of the benefits that I will say is, 1, quality of life. There are some countries that will offer a better quality of life. For example, I would say that my quality of life in Dubai is in some ways better than the quality of life that I will have that I had in the UK, just because I'm able to afford things a bit more easily because I'm not paying taxes. You can have the ability, which is one of my main drivers, is to earn in a currency that's quite strong. For example, the pound or the dollar, but then live on a currency that's quite cheap. And for a lot of people, that location freedom actually allows them to achieve financial freedom a lot more easily because you're earning in a strong currency, but you're living on a weaker currency. Another thing that you can benefit from is different business opportunities or investment opportunities. You also have wider educational opportunities as well. For example, if I wanted to go and study in Canada, I would be able to study there as a domestic student and not have to pay international school fees. If my children wanted to do that, given that I can pass down that passport, they will also be able to study in Canada and pay domestic fees as opposed to international fees. So just little things like that. I think it all comes down to choice. Then let's get into the different ways that you can actually obtain citizenship. The first one is citizenship by investment. So there are many countries who actually will offer you citizenship based on the amount that you invest into their economy, or a certain threshold that you invest into their economy. So for example, I think the cheapest you'll probably see is around $100,000 that if you invest that into a particular country, let's say you buy property, they will actually give you citizenship. There are many Caribbean islands that are quite popular for doing this because they are trying to attract investment into their economy, and so they offer their citizenship in return. And so for example, I think one of the more popular ones is St. Kitts. If you invest $250 dollars into their economy, then you can actually apply for their passport, and that gives you access to around 157 countries, which is quite strong compared to some other passports. Even if you already have a strong passport, having an additional one, let's say you were a digital nomad or you wanted to live somewhere for 6 months at a time, now you have an additional country that you can live for 6 months uninterrupted without having to go through a visa process. And then Dubai is one place that actually, through investment, you won't get citizenship, because only if you are Emirati you can get citizenship. And I think there are very, very, very few people, maybe like 1 or 2 people, who they've granted citizenship to because of one reason or another. But for the most part, the average person is not going to be able to get citizenship in Dubai. But if you invest a certain amount into the economy, then you can actually get long-term residency. So I think up to around 10 years, which is like the Dubai Golden Visa, whereas for the average person, you actually have to renew your visa every 2 years. And then you can also get citizenship through naturalization. This is the way that most people are probably common with and know about, which is, you know, when you stay in a country for a certain amount of years, then you can apply for citizenship. So I know Canada is really good with this. I literally know someone who went there for uni, was able to get a job after uni, and then started their permanent residency. And then I think if you stay there for a total of 4 years out of 6 years, you're actually able to apply for citizenship. So there are many countries that offer that. The third way you can get citizenship is through descent. So I guess my British passport and my Nigerian passport were through descent, and this is where you have a parent or someone, like I guess one of your ancestors, who is from a particular country, and they are able to pass down that passport to you. And I think this one is super important, because particularly with my Nigerian passport, that was something that I got less than a year ago when I actually went to Nigeria in December, because it's actually cheaper to apply for a Nigerian passport and go to Nigeria than actually get a visa to go. So that's just another clear benefit of having citizenship for a country, right? But one thing that I noticed with this is that when I was actually going through the process of trying to get the passport, if I had tried to do it at a time where my parents weren't here, for example, and I didn't have their documentation, I would not have been able to get that passport, because there were so many questions that they were asking for, so many documents that you needed to provide evidence for, that I wouldn't have had it. If you're in that same case as well, where your parents have citizenships and you don't have it, please do not sleep on it. Go and pick that up, because just even if you're not going to use it for anything, you don't want to go to the country, you don't want to do XYZ, you don't know what position the country is going to be in 10, 20, 30 years down the line. You don't know what your children are going to want to do a couple years down the line. And then also, if you don't know when business and investment opportunities will come up in those countries, and it's going to be so much easier for you to handle things with a passport for that country as a citizen than as an international person, right? Even things as simple as opening a bank account are going to be so much easier for you. Fourth way you can obtain citizenship is through birth, and that is actually how I got my Canadian passport. You might want to think about that. I'm not saying just go to a random country and have kids, because you have to think about healthcare, you have to think about family and all of that stuff, but that might be something that, you know, some people want to bear in mind. But note again as well, if you're thinking about a country, and this also goes for the naturalization point as well, if you're thinking about a country to move to, so let's say you want to move abroad, maybe you might want to bear in mind the country that you are moving to, and if they do offer citizenship by birth, if that's something that you want your children to have that you didn't have. And also with naturalization, you also perhaps want to move to a country where it's easier to obtain a passport through naturalization, whereas if you move to somewhere like Dubai, you can have lived here for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, and you will still never get citizenship, and neither will your children. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is knowledge and mindset. It might be obvious to some, it might not be obvious to some, but as I have met so many people over the last 2 years, I think that my mindset has really changed, and travel has definitely helped me. But one thing to point out is it's not just going to, oh, I've been to this amount of countries. It's more than just traveling, right? Because there are some places where I've been to where, let's say I go and stay on a resort, and everyone on that resort is also British. I've been to, like, when I went to Morocco, the place that I stayed, it was literally just Essex in Morocco. Like, everyone there was either British, and maybe there were a few Americans. But as I've traveled and I've tried to go to places, and don't get me wrong, I love a resort, but I also like to go to places and just speak to different people. I guess also just living now in a city that is so diverse, and I'm meeting and having conversations with people who in London I would just never converse with, has opened my mindset a lot. Back to the point, knowledge and mindset is also something that we don't realize that we pass on as well. And I say that because even just like looking at people who have been successful, self-made entrepreneurs, and all of these sort of sorts of people, if you actually do a deep dive and start looking at what their parents did as well, you will notice that a lot of self-made entrepreneurs also had entrepreneurial parents as well. And this makes a huge difference, because even just things like wanting to take risk, if you have seen your parents take that risk and come out successful, you're more likely to also want to take that risk to start a business. Or even if it's in terms of support, if your parents have started entrepreneurial ventures or are entrepreneurs and you decide that you want to be one, they're more likely to be in support of you than not. And then also as well, people who have, like, let's say an entrepreneurial family, when they go through struggles, let's say in their business, maybe the average person who's trying to start a business might then look for YouTube videos, or I don't know, buy a course or try and pay for a coach, whereas other people can literally just pick up the phone to their parents, pick up the phone to their uncle, to their aunties, to their grandparents, and ask them for that advice that you will pay thousands for, or spend hours of your time researching on YouTube trying to find an answer. That is a benefit of generational wealth, or wealth in the form of knowledge. And I'm not saying that you should then go and be an entrepreneur to try and pass down that knowledge to your children, but what I'm saying is that all of the knowledge and the skills that you acquire are also things that you can pass down to your children. And I posted on my stories definitely like last year, or maybe even over a year ago, all the books that I've read that I really liked, I've collected them. I'll post some screenshots on the screen. I'm collecting them, and like I highlight them and I write notes in them, and then when I'm like, I'm gonna keep these books and also pass them down to my children, because this is knowledge. And I remember I actually borrowed a book from someone, and their dad had passed that book down to them, and so in the book I could see like where their dad had highlighted stuff and made notes, where they had highlighted stuff and made notes, and then I was also reading it, getting like their takeaways from the book, and then also having my own takeaways. And I was like, this is just great. And speaking on skills and stuff, the sponsor of this video is Skillshare. I love that the Skillshare platform allows us to create new career possibilities for ourselves, because there is just so many skills and knowledge that we can pick up, from design to entrepreneurship to time management, business, how to use Notion. There's just so many classes on there that we can all benefit from. I have also been able to take classes from some of my favorite creators, such as Ali Abdal. I really enjoyed his class on building systems for creators, and also even Erin on Demand. She had a really good class on there on how to create binge-worthy vlogs. So I've definitely enjoyed using Skillshare to learn new skills and develop my knowledge. And you can also explore Skillshare for a whole month for free for the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description box. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is health. The health is wealth. It's something that is definitely very popular. I'm sure we've all heard it before, but I don't think enough people think about health when they're also thinking about generational wealth. And I have so many things that I want to discuss when it comes to this. One of the first things is, as I've been going on my fitness health journey, it's been like a year and a half now, and I've been particularly learning like how I should eat, what I should be eating, what my plate should look like, what it means like to actually have a balanced diet. I realized that like the food habits that have been passed down to me don't correlate with what is supposed to be like a healthy diet, right? So let's just say, for example, like a typical dish when I was growing up, let's say is like rice and chicken, right? And the way the bowl will be structured, the majority of the plate is going to be the rice, and especially when you are younger, you're going to have a very tiny piece of meat because you're the youngest. And as I've kind of grown up, that's kind of the way that I eat. We didn't really eat as much vegetables. I have like some stews and soups that have vegetable as the main thing, but obviously it's drenched in oil as well. But I would just say that the way that I have grown up to eat, like the food habits that were passed down to me don't actually match up with what I'm now learning is like the way that I should be eating. Our parents passed down these food eating habits to us, but then that's also probably been passed down to them, and it's also definitely influenced by the sort of countries that you're coming from. If your parents or your grandparents or whatever are coming from typically a poorer country, you're more likely to have carbohydrates as the majority of your plate, because carbs or grains, for example, are much cheaper for people to afford than things like meat, certain types of fish. So it makes sense that like those were the eating habits that they have developed, and and subsequently that is what has been passed down to you. But I have been trying to change it because I realized that it's actually not good for me in particular to have a whole plate that's just filled with carbs. Actually, the majority of your plate is supposed to be vegetables, and then the protein, and then the carbs. Till now, like even though I'm still in the process of changing my eating habits, I still find it really hard to eat like that, because it's just not how I like to eat. The first time I had salad as a meal definitely within the last 2 years, because I would just be like, a salad is not food, like that's not a meal, that's a side. I'm learning different ways that I can incorporate better eating habits that work for me. So for example, I prefer to like drink my vegetables in the form of like a smoothie or whatever than to have it as a side. Sometimes we think that, oh no, but by the time I have kids, you know, I'll definitely change things now, but it's highly unlikely. Habits are not that easy to break, and we all know that because at the start of the year we set all of these habits and things that we want to do, and then most people 3 weeks into the year have already failed on those habits. So it's not as easy to break. So for me, one of the things that I'm working on is just making sure that I have better health, fitness habits, because whatever I do, naturally I'm going to pass down to my kids as well. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is I was actually speaking to someone the other day, right? Mentioned that one of their parents suffered with seasonal depression, and so that they also sometimes get that, and they were saying that they were going to do XYZ during like the winter period to try and prevent that. And for me, and when I heard that, I was literally like, and then they carried on talking, but I was like, hold on a second, did you just say that your parent, a Black African parent, has identified that they have seasonal depression and have given you like some sort of advice to also cope with it? I was literally mind blown, because a lot of parents just don't have a good grasp on health, like mental health, and even sometimes physical health as well. Like a lot of the time my mom would be like, she'll tell me something like something tragic, like someone passed away or something, and I'll be like, oh, what happened to the person? And she'll be like, oh, I don't know, they're just sick. And I'm like, but the average person doesn't die from just a regular sickness. Like, do they have meningitis? Was it COVID? Was it cancer? Was it diabetes? So like, oh, I don't know, they're just sick. This is not even to blame parents or anything, but they just didn't have that level of understanding that we now have about our own mental health situation, our own physical health situation. And we can actually use that to our advantage to make sure that if there are things that we are going through, that we are dealing with, that we know how to actually identify them and deal with them, just in case our children also go through that. I'll give you guys an example, because I think I mentioned before on my channel that I'm quite an anxious person, and this is something that I've like come to learn about. But the first time I had like an anxiety attack a couple years ago now, I was just like, oh my god, I think I'm having a heart attack, like what's going on, like am I gonna die? Like I was so worried, because I just didn't know what that was. And over time I've come to learn that I'm just quite an anxious person. So my hormones as well also really contribute to my anxiety. And as I've come to learn more about it and like how to deal with it and how to manage it, and like certain either triggers or like responses that I have as a result of my anxiety, I've actually realized that I think my mom also is a very anxious person as well. Now that I've learned a lot about like my body and how my hormones contribute to things, I'm able to I track my cycles a lot more closely, and I know what supplements that I need to be taken in order to help to alleviate changes in my body that happen as a result of my levels of progesterone dropping. I don't blame the parents at all, they didn't have that knowledge, but now that we have that knowledge, and now that I have that knowledge, I am trying to deal and cope and manage and accept some of these things, but also know how to manage them effectively. For you, it could be maybe you're smoking and you've always wanted to quit it, and maybe you don't have the motivation to quit it for yourself, but just know that if that is something that your children see you do, they might also pick that up. Or let's say you always get these headaches, and you know, maybe someone else in your family also always gets these headaches as well, but you've never tried to actually find a solution for it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment down below if you want me to make a part 2 of this. Follow me on TikTok, because that's where I'm the most consistent these days, apparently. Sign up to my newsletter. Discount code for my online store is YouTube20 for 20% off all of the resources, including the webinars. The webinars, one of them is about 2 hours and the other one is over 3 hours of knowledge, research, everything that I basically know on money and on property investing as well. So I hope you guys enjoy these resources. Also, don't forget to check out Skillshare. I'll leave the link in the description box, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.